Very good. On behalf of the city of Kings Mountain, welcome, and I'll hand it over to our city staff. Our city manager, Todd Carpenter.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. It's good to see everybody out. I'm sorry we couldn't do this earlier, but we did have some staff conflicts last time. My name's Todd Carpenter. I am the city manager here. I've been here since a year ago, this past January. I spent 38 years in Gastonia before retiring, and then doing a short stint in Cleveland County as the county manager, and then ended up here in Kings Mountain. And proud to say that we're working hard to improve things with regards to the city, all across the city, not just water. We have a great staff. Everybody understands what the priorities are, and priority one, since April, I guess, or May of last year, has been water. Okay, that's when I discovered that we were having an issue. And so tonight, it is about me sharing with you and my staff sharing with you what is going on. Why are some experiencing taste and smell issues? What are we doing to mitigate the taste and smell issues? What have we done? What will we be doing in the future? So I hope this is very informative. I'm looking forward to your questions. If we don't know, if we don't have an answer for something that you asked tonight, we will have your name and we will have your contact information, and we will get an answer back to you. Hopefully we'll be able to answer anything that you may ask. To start with, what I'd like to do is talk just a minute about our water plant and how the water is received into the water plant and how it gets to your homes. So we have what's called a traditional water treatment plant. That means we treat with chemicals. We test and we analyze the lake on a constant basis, and we apply chemicals in order to treat, whether it's an algae bloom, whether it's a taste-related issue, whether it's a smell-related issue, whether we have to increase chlorination. We test this constantly, okay? And so to kind of high level explain what we do, we have Moss Lake as our source water, right? It's a surface water lake, meaning that it is impacted environmentally constantly. So we're dealing with heat, we're dealing with cold, we're dealing with too much rain, too little rain. We're dealing with lake turnover. All of these things occur naturally in our lake, and that is our source of water. We intake at our plant. We have screens in place to catch anything big from entering into the plant. We intake, and then we start treatment at that point, okay? Any traditional water plant, which we are, works the same way. So once we start treating, we're putting in oxidizers, we're putting in disinfectants, we're putting in chemicals to cause flocculation, right? William, if you don't mind, just take a minute, because you know much more about the chemicals than I do, but just take a minute to explain some of what I just said regarding the chemicals and how we treat and where we treat. Introduce yourself.
For those of you who do not know me, William Nash. I've been with Kings Mountain just over 6 months. So we've been tackling this issue since we've got here. I've got coming up on 20 years of experience in water treatment, distribution, collections, a little bit of everything when it comes to this. So one of the things, that I was first tasked with was obviously the water quality. As Todd said, when he first got here, he became aware of the issue, I believe he said June. Sorry, Todd, I wasn't paying attention. So when he became aware of the issue, they started looking, got me involved. So in part of evaluating this system, we started looking at everything as a whole. And as Todd's showing you this diagram up here, I mean, obviously we have lakes, the surface water. That's point source. That's where we need to start. You got to start at the beginning. But we have our intake and our screening that you see at the second little diagram there. So we pull water from 3 different depths. We pull it 20, 15, and 5, depending on the lake turnover, depending on the water quality, the turbidity. We use that testing to determine where we're going to pull the water from that day based on our testing. Now, moving forward with the carbon treatment and taste for odor and taste you have up there, it's more than just carbon treatment. As the raw water comes in, we introduce an oxidizer. So an oxidizer is just something that helps to control the algae. It can neutralize the organics coming in from the lake. There are different types of years going to require different oxidizers. You've all heard about lake turnover. So during the months where we have lake turnover, where the warm water and cold water switch places, you get iron, you get manganese, you get an influx of that. So we use a different oxidizer for that. That oxidizer, depending on what time of the year, we hit it with our oxidizer, and then we go into the treatment plant. And what we'll do is we'll hit it with a chemical called an alum. So that alum it binds the particles, any loose particles of sedimentation. We want to bind those particles so they get heavy and they settle out to the bottom. That's what creates our sedimentation. That's part of the control process. And then as the water's exiting, we're doing our lab tests every hour. We do those regularly. I mean, you can see them on the lab sheets. We have things we test for in the raw water every hour. We test the finished water every hour. We test the tanks regularly. And part of that is the chemical adjustment. If we see that we're having an uptake in manganese for the day, for example, we're going to turn that oxidizer up just a little bit. If we see our chlorine levels are looking really good, our disinfection levels, we're going to leave that. Or if we have to increase water flow, we'll increase it just a little bit to kind of balance the ins and outs of the system. So that's kind of the chemical side of it in a nutshell, not trying to get too involved. And then the settling. Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much. So again, the chemical side he talked about a little bit. So once we start treatment, then the water moves through the plant and eventually reaches the basins here. The basins we call settling basins are right here. So when the water comes in there, the solids will settle out to the bottom of the basins. And then one thing that's not on here is our clarification tank. So the solids that settle at the bottom of here get pumped to our clarification tank. That's where our sludge resides. From the sludge gets pumped out again into what we call a belt press. It's pressed, it's dried on the property, and then it's moved to our wastewater treatment plant for processing. But the settling and what's going on in this chamber is very important, because on the other side of this we have filters. So the cleaner the water coming into here, the better our filters can work. And so we've been working really hard to clean this water right here. From there, from our basins, it flows, and this takes a while. It just doesn't flow in and flow out. It's coming in here and it's staying a while so the treatments, the chemicals can work and do their job. But from there, it flows into our storage tanks. Right before there, we apply disinfectant, which is chlorine, and the water stays in here until it leaves and is then going through our distribution center, our system. Our distribution center is everything that's underground, the stuff we own and the stuff you own, the stuff from our meter into your homes. So that whole infrastructure underground, through the streets, under the streets, and to your house is called the distribution center. So that's basically what has happened. It's much, much more complicated than that, but those are the steps. I'm going to turn it back over to William for just a minute.
So earlier when we were talking, I talked about the sedimentation and, lake turnover, etc. That's a big part of the cause of your taste and odors is the organics in the lake. So I know in the past, during the summer months, you'd see the extreme taste and odors, and that's the organics coming in. That's the algae. That's what the strands of algae are MIB and geosmin that we are dealing with. Now, why it's so important to know that MIB and geosmin is what we're dealing with is that people taste those in ultra low concentrations. So I don't know if anybody ever watches Shark Week, but if you have, you've heard where a shark can smell one drop of blood in 1 million drops or 1 million gallons of water. MIB and geosmin are very, very similar to that. So 5 parts per million, 5 parts per trillion of geosmin is where you can actually taste. So it's a very, very low amount that when it's in the drinking water system, it's detectable. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're fighting. And it's due strictly to the organics that we're seeing in the lake. Now, we talked about the carbon treatment earlier. We use carbon to try to offset that taste. However, during the summer, you can have such high levels that it's hard to combat that. And that's what we're working on. And that's where you're getting your taste. That's where you're getting your odor from is these ultra low levels of detectables in MIB and geosmin.
Thank you, William. And again, these are naturally occurring in all surface water. Well, Kings Mountain's not the only one dealing with geosmin and MIBs. Anybody around the country that gets their water out of a surface lake is dealing with the same thing, and they're treating the same way. Things that occur in the lake, the turnover, which is a natural thing that happens when the temperatures rise and fall in the heat of the summer and in the cold of the winter. It's a good thing because it takes that algae, it drops it to the bottom of the lake, and then it gets processed naturally, and then it gets released into the lake, and then it dissipates. But for a while, we have to deal with that, and we treat it, as William said, with carbon. That's the way you do it. But it's a balancing act because you don't want to dump too much carbon in. So that's why we continually test. And we send all of our samples off to a state-certified third party that does our testing for us and sends us back the results. He didn't mention it, I don't think, but it's important. These compounds are harmless. They're detectable. You can smell them and you can taste them when they're at their highest levels, but they're harmless. This article right here is June of 1984, 1996, 2003. As you can see, it's hard to see. Nothing harmful in the water. This is all about the water. This is Kings Mountain Water Problem Continues, and if you looked it up and you found the where it was continued on the next page, there's in 2003, in 1984, it's the same talk. It's like going back in time. They're talking about carbon treatment. They're talking about not treating it with too much carbon. They're talking about taste and smell, MIBs and geosmin. So 84 is only around about 10 years after the lake was built, if I'm not mistaken. That was 73, 70, early 70s, I know that. So it's not something that we are just experiencing. Kings Mountain has been experiencing this for a long time. So I wanted to point that out. I think the things that we're doing now are going to have a big impact going forward on the mitigation of this taste and smell. I don't think we can eliminate it, and I'm not going to stand up in front of you tonight and say we can, but we can mitigate it to the best of our ability. The city's water is and has always been safe to drink, to bathe in, to cook in. It meets all the standards set forth by the state. It meets all the standards set forth by the federal government. That's never been at question. The MIBs and the geosmin that are naturally occurring as a result of organics are secondary contaminants, taste and smell. Please understand that the water is completely safe to drink, cook, and bathe in. So, what have we done? What are we doing? And what are we going to do? If you remember back to the first slide I talked about, there's treatment, there is there's cleaning of the basins of our tanks, there's sludge management, and there's distribution. So everything that we've done so far and will do is affecting or impacting one of those things. So, for instance, we had, and I'm going to try to keep this simple. For myself, really, the oxidizer and the chlorine at one point, right where the water comes in, or carbon, not chlorine. Chlorine's later. The oxidizer and the carbon, right where the water comes in, were right next to each other. So they were canceling each other out. They did not have time to do their job and treat the water. We moved that. We separated those two so there's more contact time between the oxidizer and the carbon. It's not perfect yet, but we're going to get it perfect. But that's something we could do quickly. You got to keep in mind, anything we change at the water plant, we can't just change it. We have to work through DEQ, the Division of Environmental Quality. It has to be permitted. They have to approve the change. We can't just do it. But that's something that we did. We opened up a forced sedimentation basin to slow down the water, to allow it more treatment time too. We cleaned all our basins. We cleaned all our tanks, things that hadn't been done in a long time. We've gotten recently our sludge management issues under control. The plant was upgraded in 2015. A lot of work was done with regards to the plant itself, not necessarily the clarification tanks that hold all the sediment. So when you're treating more water and more sludge goes into these tanks, you kind of have a chicken or egg situation. You can't clean the basins because you can't get the sludge out, okay? And you can't fix the clarification tanks because you have nowhere to put any more sludge. So we've solved that. We've actually had to bring in what's called frac tanks. They look like big tractor trailer, the trailer part on a tractor trailer, and we've moved temporarily all of our sludge into these 15, 20 frac tanks, right? We'll eventually land apply that, but we're waiting on permitting from DEQ. But so again, we've cleaned our tanks, we've cleaned our storage, we've got sludge management under control now, and our distribution system. We're flushing our lines, okay? We're doing individual flushing when we hear from you all. If you've got a problem at your house, we come out and we flush those lines. We flush the lines coming to your home. So a lot done already. And that's just continuous improvement, right? Those four things we constantly monitor and we constantly try to improve on. We've got baffle walls. I know everybody's heard about baffle walls. Baffle walls are going back in. They were taken out in 2015. I don't know why. They were, though, and we're putting them back in. Baffle walls are nothing more than a concrete, just think of it as a concrete wall with holes in it. All right? The water comes into the basins, it hits those walls first, and set in the solids fall right there, so we can get them out of the basins quickly. The water still has to flow through the basins, and the flocculation will settle. The smaller particles will settle down, but that's going back in. I've been asked a lot of times. People have called me and asked me, why has it taken so long to get the baffle walls back in? Because we actually recognize the fact that they were gone. They were removed back in, I think, July. Well, again, if you're going to put something back in at the water plant, you got to have it engineered, right? So we had to have construction drawings that were engineered, approved by an engineer, that we then had to send to DEQ, who has to permit it. That takes some time to get the permit back so we can start construction. Once we get the permit back, we have to bid it, okay? Bidding, that's out on the street for 30 days. We have to review the bids. All of this is statutorily required. Then we award the contract. And now, actually, next week, construction is supposed to start on the baffle walls. So there's 3 basins that don't have the baffle walls, and we'll put the 3 back in. I think 3 to 4 weeks each, or less. 7 to 8. 7 days each. I'm sorry, 7 days each to get the baffle walls back in. Again, ongoing testing and monitoring algae. Another thing that is very important to a water treatment plant, an electric system, wastewater treatment plant, is what's called a SCADA system. It's the computer controls that manage the operation of the plant. We are upgrading our SCADA system so that more of what is going on in that plant is automated. Now that might seem a little scary, but it's not, because the computer system can react to changes in the lake water immediately. And it can adjust the oxidizers, it can adjust the carbon, it can adjust the chlorine. It also monitors for failures. Anytime we have a pump failure, anytime our water pressure's low, if a valve's stuck, all of that is handled with our SCADA system. So we're working hard to get that done. Again, permitting, again, dollars, right? SCADA system's very expensive, so we will, again, but as I said, water's a priority. So I think council has committed, the mayor has committed, staff has committed to, finding the money to fix some of these things that we can that are going to have a long-term impact on our system. We have a landing page now. It's cityofkingsmountain.com/water updates. Is that right? cityofkm.com/water updates. Everything that we're doing at the plant and everything that we're going to do at the plant is going to be on that landing page. Go there as your source for information, please. If we notice that we're getting ready to, if we're seeing algae blooms increase, we're gonna notify you there. We're gonna let you know what to expect. If we're making an improvement to the plant, we're gonna let you know about it. I know it's so important to you all. It's so important to me. It's so important to these guys. We're living this every day. The last thing, there's nothing more than I would like is to not have to talk about water anymore. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna. Is this where I wrap up? Okay, I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna look at that time. Isn't that perfect? So I'm gonna turn it back over.
As he mentioned, we've developed a few different communication platforms for you. So the website is the first one, and if we click over, you're going to see a QR code where you can scan it with your phone. You just open up your camera app and you can take a picture. It'll take you right there. Before we get to Q&A, I'm going to jump over that real quick to show you that's the page. As he mentioned, cityofkm.com/city water updates. It's a really long URL. You can just scan it. It'll be right in your phone. On that page, you're going to see an entire list of FAQs, all of the ones that we've answered from anyone that submitted questions. And we will update any other questions you have tonight on that page as well. So anyone that's not here can also hear what we're saying to the questions that you have. Along with that, if you have a problem, we encourage you to give us feedback, report your concern. The reason, and I'm the one that was asking for your email addresses when you came in, is because I want to be able to communicate with you. That's what Ian and I are here for, to help build out the communication platforms that you get the information you need in a timely fashion. Okay, with that being said, we're gonna go backwards. Ian, you have note cards. We're gonna start with the note cards, and then if you would like to ask a question, we ask that you come up here to the podium, and if there ends up being a line, that's okay. We're going to answer them one at a time. Just like we do in public meetings, you have a 2-minute time limit. And just please be aware that we really try to be focused, ask one question at a time to give other people an opportunity to ask questions as well. And we do ask you, please be respectful. It's a public forum. We are recording this. And so let's get started.
Does anyone, can you all hear me? Okay. Does anyone have any note cards they'd like to pass up? I'm happy to gather them if you don't want to come up to the mic and ask your question. Yes, and Susan in the back has extra note cards if you'd rather write your question.
Yes.
And when we get through the note card questions, if anyone wants to ask a question live but cannot make it up to the podium or doesn't want to, I'll bring the stick mic to you so that you're able to ask the question from your seat.
William just reminded me, we are also doing a utility bill insert, so you're going to find in your utility bill the same information here. So an FAQ, landing page, QR code, all of the information, just in case you miss it in other spots. Do you want to hand me the cards, or
Yeah.
Or are you going to go ahead? Okay, first question. Do we need to drain our hot water tanks?
So hot water tanks, a lot of people I've spoke with odor concerns. A lot of people don't realize that plumbers, you can Google this, plumbers, everyone should be draining and maintaining their water heater annually. It is an annual maintenance thing. Again, a lot of people I've spoke to are not aware of this. And there's been a few people that I've visited. We've popped a valve on the water heater, the blow-off valve, and we've been able to show them that that's where a lot of the odor they were getting was coming from, was the water heater. We have instructed them to either work with a plumber, or there's DIY kits you can get, Home Depot, Lowe's, they all sell them. And we've had some very positive results from that. I try to follow up with people and see, if there was a benefit to them. And we have had some positive feedback that once they drained the water heater and they got that water cycled over and they flushed it, that a lot of their odors that they were noticing during showers went away.
Next question on here is, do we need to buy a water filter?
So we do get the question, again, do I need a water filter? And I do want to drop back to the state and the EPA regulations. The water is safe to drink. With all the testing we do, it is required by the state and EPA. So you do not need a water filter to make your water safe. However, I will say that if you have installed a water filter, or your home has a water filter when you purchased it, make sure you're changing your filters regular. That is another thing that I've encountered where I worked with one individual, not a couple, one individual, where they had water filter on their home and they were unaware of the maintenance. Again, maintenance issue. They had water filters on their home that had been on there for close to 3 years without changing the filters. So please know your equipment that's on your home, and if you do have a water filter, make sure you're changing those filters on the recommended maintenance.
All right, it's going to come right back to you. What areas have Public Works flushed specific dead end lines?
So let's see, it was right after the first cold snap we had, so I guess that was early February when we had that warm week. We went in and we flushed the entire system. We started at a water treatment plant and pulled through the entire system. Now, with that being said, it takes a lot of water to flush a system of this size. So if you're still having issues or concerns in your areas, please let us know and we can do some spot flushing. And it was mentioned earlier, we're going to have that landing page, so that's a great spot for you to say, hey, I'm still having issues. Can you come check this out? Can you do a spot flush? We've had, again, several customers, have had concerns, whether they're on dialysis or something along that lines, medical conditions, we will flush those lines more frequently at their request because they ask us to come out and do it. So please use that page and let us know, and we can get out and do a spot flush for you.
There are 3 questions on this note card. The first one is, what is or are the organisms in the water, which I think we addressed with the geosmin and MIB. The second question is, while we are told that the water is safe, why does it cause skin rashes, itching, etc., and why does it leave such a terrible smell after clothes are washed?
The water is safe. I can't answer that question specifically. I would hope that you are seeing or you're seeking medical advice if you have rashes or irritants on your skin, or if there is a terrible smell. That could be because of a couple things that Williams just mentioned. But as far as the water and the safety of the water, it is perfectly safe to, as I said, to drink, bathe, and cook in.
The third question on this is, how does this originate? And I think we covered that in the Q&A, but I don't know whose card this is, so I'm going to assume we're okay. Yep. These are all the card questions I have. Any others that came up?
Then I'm going to go through our list of signups first. So first up to come up to the mic was Nancy Arrowwood. Nancy, if you're here and you want to come up, it'll be 2 minutes. I'll set the timer in just a moment.
Thank you. I totally disagree with you about it being safe. I still have to buy my water. It still smells. My toilet, I keep my toilet lids closed. You raise it, it smells like iron or sulfur. And I don't want that in my body. So I buy water to drink and for my coffee pot. And I don't understand why it's been 8 months and it's still not solved.
I would suggest that you report a problem on the landing page and let us come out to your house and test your water. And there could be some issues that we maybe need to flush out there. We may have an issue with the hot water heater. The water right now is better than it's ever been leaving our plant. So please report the problem. We'll come out and test your water individually for you.
Well, I'll definitely do that because my water still smells. And I do not want to put that in my body because you never know what's going to happen when you get those chemicals inside you.
And as Todd was saying, by reporting the problem, what it'll do is that comes directly to me and to my staff. That'll give me name, contact information, and address, and I'll reach out and I'll schedule a time to come out and talk with you.
Okay, can I do that tomorrow?
I believe the landing page is active, so yes, ma'am, you can go on there and do it.
Okay, I'll definitely do that.
And if for whatever reason you can't access it, just go on the county's website and the city's, thank you. Go on the city's website and there'll be a phone number, find the departments, find the water, and it'll go to my admin and he'll get me the information if the website's not working for some reason.
All right, okay, thank you.
Next up is Jason Nail.
All right, thanks a lot for y'all bringing everybody together and I had this forum. I truly appreciate it. So there's a couple questions. I got so many, but I know we're limited in time. So one of the things that I heard during the slide that the main reason for the issues that we're having with the water in Kings Mountain was because of lake turnover and algae bloom. Can y'all answer definitively that the dredging did have nothing to do with where we're at currently or previously? That was one of my questions, the dredging that took place. And what are we doing on Moss Lake as far as algae bloom, with fertilizers, pesticides, pollutants from the folks around the lake that's ultimately helped drive, correct me if I'm wrong, but the algae blooms with the nitrogens and stuff like that in the lake. And like stormwater runoff, things of that nature. What are we doing to be proactive to try to keep some of that stuff out of our lake? That's one of the couple things there. But the dredging was a big one. I heard from somebody that the dredging in July or something like that was the main contributor at that point for the issues that we're having with the smell in water.
Let's answer that one first.
Sure.
So you heard from me that back in July
Okay.
that was a very strong contributor from of the what we were having occurring in the lake, which again is organics, right? I didn't have all the information, Jason, that I needed. I was just learning about everything that was going on. I was told that that was a significant issue that dredging had occurred. Now that dredging was all the way up at the other end, the top end of the lake. It was a small amount of dredging done for a particular dock and cleanup around the dock. What we know now, because we're working with consultants, what we know now is during that time, the dredging had no impact on the turbidity in the lake water. So I'm going to say right now that it could be. I'm never going to rule out that it was a contributing factor, but by no means was it the primary driver of the algae blooms. The algae blooms are occurring naturally. They're going to occur again. We're at the mercy of the environment, the water, the sun, the heat, the cold, the runoff. Okay.
And fertilizers,
And
pesticides.
fertilizer.
Yeah.
Because it's there are houses around the lake. There's not a thing we can do about
Right.
that. People fertilize their lawns. They want their lawns to look nice. The nitrogen is running off into the lake, and yes, that does aid the growth of the algae. And so what we have to do is get our plant to the point where we can combat whatever that lake throws at us, and that's what we're trying to do. So we can mitigate. And we're looking at other things too. And the algae blooms are the primary source. And the turnover of the lake, again, is going to happen 2 times a year. It happens in all lakes. And that can be really beneficial. That kind of helps us out. Initially, it causes the the organics to be released, but it's killing them. You know, every year they get sent to the bottom and then they get processed and decomposed down there. A lake over time, again, we've learned this from some of our consultants, is that the algae blooms are greater every year, so it's harder to combat them. There's things that we can do and consider, and we are, but I guess I'll leave it at that. I hope that answers your questions.
It does. And I guess one of the questions would be, what kind of mitigation options can we take to keep those pesticides and fertilizers out of the lake? I mean, is there any kind of plans for that to try to help mitigate some of the algae bloom?
There are no plans right now.
Okay. And I got one other question. I know I'm over my 2 minutes, but are there any concerns of PFAS, forever chemicals, lead, or other emergent contaminants within the system?
So we're actually required to test for that stuff with the state testing. We test for PFAS, and that's your PFAS, the forever chemicals. We've tested for those. We show no signs of forever chemicals in Moss Lake. There's no reportable quantity of forever chemicals that we have found and tested for. It's a yearly requirement. And a lot of the information, and I'm glad you asked the question because it allows me to point to something real quick. Each year we're required to do what's called a consumer confidence report. The state makes us put our max and minimum concentrations of the levels that we test for, and all that can be found on the website. Again, it's called CCR, Consumer Confidence Report. And for anybody who's looking to find what we test and find, it is all right there on a state document.
Okay.
So as far as leads, coppers, that kind of thing, we test for every bit of that.
Okay. Last question, and I'll leave you alone. Development. Does our current infrastructure sufficient enough to handle the large development projects coming into the city via possibly the data center? Are we well positioned to do so? For water.
I'm gonna let Matt have a chance to speak. Okay.
Yeah, I hadn't had a chance to introduce myself. My name is Matt Blackwell. I'm one of the assistant city managers here at the city of Kings Mountain. So to address your question regarding infrastructure, all small towns across the state of North Carolina and across the country have aging infrastructure. So we have two things as we focus on growth. One is to maintain and replace our aging infrastructure as needed, so that we make sure that we're meeting the needs of our current population. And then two, we look at our strategic and capital growth in our communities. We want our communities to grow. That's how you stay sustainable. So in any economic development project or recruitment, or anytime we're looking at economic development, we're always evaluating all the needs for the utility resources for a company that may consider locating in our community. That would include water, electric, natural gas, and we look at those to determine what our current capacities are and how that meets or does not meet the needs of those entities looking at our community. And then we start evaluating what improvements may be necessary for the city to accommodate such projects should they locate here. There are opportunities that may present themselves for partnerships with these entities in which the city may pay a portion of it. The company that may be locating here may pay a portion of it. We may require them to pay 100% of any of those improvements that might be necessary for them to locate in our community. I would tell you at this time there are no data centers. As you're aware, we currently have a moratorium on data center development, but we don't have any current plans that have been submitted. We have no construction drawings for data centers. There have been no data centers permitted by the city of Kings Mountain at this time. So I would tell you, as we do with all economic development projects, we evaluate those individually to determine how we might be able to serve those entities, or how we might be able to partner with them should we be able to meet their needs. There are oftentimes, I've been in the field of economic development for close to 20 years, and you lose out on some opportunities because sometimes our infrastructure just can't meet their needs, and they choose other locations that can meet their needs. So it is a balancing act, and we work hard to focus on the community that's here, but also look at development opportunities as well.
Our next questioner is David Caldwell. David Caldwell.
I have a follow-up to what Matt said too, just to understand sort of the scope of water usage in a large AI-type data center. With the city of Kings Mountain in the wintertime months, we use about 4.5 million gallons of water a day. In the summertime, it bumps up to about 7 million. A large AI data center can use 500 million gallons of water a day, okay? So it's just 5 million gallons of water a day, not 500 million. It can go from 500,000 to 5 million in a day. Now, we're never going to allow a economic development project to come in if we don't have capacity to serve. AI data centers are about to solve the water problem, though, unlike their ability to solve the electric problem, but that's for a whole nother discussion.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't really directing it towards the AI, just broadly speaking, as far as the developments and stuff like that.
Right.
But thank you.
I'm David Caldwell. I'm your Broad River Keeper. And these gentlemen are talking about the source water for Kings Mountain, and that is Moss Lake, and the challenges that we have with Moss Lake water quality. What I want to say is that we need to look at the source of Moss Lake water, which is Buffalo Creek. I've been sampling Buffalo Creek for years and found consistently higher bacteria levels.
Let me interrupt you real quick. I'm sorry. If you'll step back from the mic, that mic's a little bit
Oh,
tricky. If you
okay.
step back, it kind of unmuddles the question. Sorry, I didn't mean to
I don't
interrupt
do
you.
a whole lot of public speaking.
See if I get this.
Check, check, check.
It's good. It'll pick you up for sure. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, better. Thanks. So, like I was saying, I've been sampling Buffalo Creek for years and have found consistently higher bacteria levels in Buffalo Creek. At the time, I speculated that was probably due to cows in the streams, lots of chicken manure being used as fertilizer on our fields. Later, I found out that we also have about 50 fields in the Buffalo Creek watershed where land-applied residuals are used as fertilizer. So that's a lot of bacteria and nutrients coming from fertilizer all the way up the Buffalo Creek watershed from Moss Lake to Toluca, right? So North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's basin planners concurred with this opinion in their 2024 Broad River Basin Plan, stating, actions should be taken to protect this lake from becoming eutrophic, including the use of best management practices in the watershed to limit additional nutrients to the lake. To better understand nutrients in the watershed, additional monitoring and source identification needs to be conducted on tributaries to the reservoir. This could include monitoring locations downstream of point sources, land-applied residuals, and agriculture operations. Can I get another half a minute in? But also, Buffalo Creek and the First Broad watershed have several pollution sources, including what I've said, land-applied residuals, and animal waste application. And while I don't have a defined plan to fix the problem, I think that acknowledging that there is a problem with Buffalo Creek and identifying the causes of that problem are the first steps to finding the solution. Thanks for your time.
That's your time. Our next. Tim Sanders. Tim Sanders.
Good evening, Tim Sanders. I got a couple of questions. One, the city of Kings Mountain, by the code, can stop giving out new building permits and do not have to give out new water lines to new houses. So my question is, why did we not stop some of this when we had all the water issues for us people to have fresh drinking water instead of trying to supply more homes? We could have stopped that by the city code. Second, with these dead-end fire hydrants we got, are there any plans for we can rotate that water around that might help to have safe drinking water instead of all that water sitting at the end on these dead ends?
I'll answer the first one. We have the capacity for treatment at our plant is 12 million gallons a day. Okay, the water again that we're utilizing in a day is 4.5 million gallons during the winter months and up to 6.5 to 7 during the summer. We have plenty of capacity for all the developments that have been approved. The treatment has nothing to do. In fact, an important point: the more development we have to a point that's using more of our water and making it flow through our system and our pipes and our infrastructure, the better. Okay, so the plant is big. The plant can treat lots of water. The problem we have is treating the lake water when the algae blooms occur. The second question is, yes, we understand that we need to have a regular flushing schedule. So one of the things that we're looking for, and we hope to get in the next few months, are what's called automatic flushing valves, so that we can put those on the dead ends and at these fire hydrants you're talking about and flush our water on a continual basis.
Okay, the third one, the final one. If I ain't mistaken, we had 2 pumps at our other lakes. We got 2 other lakes in Kings Mountain. We used to have pumps in them that when Moss Lake, we could switch over and get water out of the other 2 lakes. So why would they take the pumps out when we not use them when Moss Lake went bad?
Are you speaking the Moss Lake went bad because of the algae blooms?
No, I'm just saying when Moss Lake went bad, why didn't we switch over? If we'd have left the 2 pumps in the other lakes, we could have used the other 2 lakes until you got the problem fixed at Moss Lake.
Well, I can promise you that, number one, the other 2 lakes will have the same algae blooms in them, okay? So we'll have to treat that too. I can't speak to why pumps were removed. The infrastructure over there, I don't know. I imagine that was taken out a long, long time ago.
Yeah, because you don't have all the boats and all the houses around the other 2 lakes like you do at Moss Lake, so that water shouldn't have took much to treat.
Yeah, well, that water is even more stagnant and not moving than Moss Lake water. So you're going to have the same problem if we were using that as our source water.
All right, thank you.
Our next one is John Lemond. John Lemond.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carpenter and team for coming and speaking to the town. I have faith that you'll complete the work and fix the water source issue. My question is around, and you mentioned the aging system, the distribution system. It's an entire system that affects that distributes water throughout the city. And recently we had a main break or a pipe burst on Mountain Street, and of course we all know that continued to leak for quite some time. And I believe the team, as they did the work, expanded their perimeter around that area, shutting off valves as they went, but the leak did not stop. And so my understanding is that while that was unsuccessful, it was discovered that pipe was very old. That pipe was not on schematics that the city has available to manage and understand what the system is, and that possibly it was not to believe to be in service, so that if it broke, that water wouldn't have come out anyway. And so that really caught my attention. Being in the town for just over 2 years now, I can tell that the smaller town, it hasn't had a boom yet. I know there's a lot of development, but the town hasn't really taken off just yet. And so the town is a little bit older. The infrastructure is older, whether electrical or water. So my question, knowing that if what I've stated is correct, that it was not on schematics and city plans and things like that, what percentage of our water distribution system is mapped and recorded with 100% certainty? Do we have an understanding of that? Secondly, what percentage of that distribution system is nearing or past end of life? And if we know those things, what is the estimated cost to upgrade and replace this end of life portion of our infrastructure?
Those are all things that we're trying to figure out. The infrastructure in some areas of town is very old. It's a across this nation problem. Infrastructure underground is old and needs to be replaced. The federal government doesn't fund these, and the state government doesn't fund this type of money anymore to replace this infrastructure. You are right in what you said about the pipe on Mountain. That line, when it started leaking, it was news to all three of us sitting at this table that line should have been abandoned. And we could not find the valves for the line on Mountain. We couldn't find them. We couldn't get the water cut off. We had to repair that water break while water flowed through it. And our people did yeoman's work in doing so. When we had the main line break on King Street not long after that when it lifted up the road. That line too should have been abandoned. We luckily were able to find the valves there. So we are trying, and I'll turn it over to William and Matt in a minute. They might have a better idea in terms of how much is mapped and how much do we have confidence in. But quite frankly, I don't right now have a lot of confidence in what we have, especially in regard to some of the pipes underground. But do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so you mentioned the schematics on Mountain Street. We do have schematics for Mountain Street. Unfortunately, the problem was with everyone believing that Mountain Street was dead, Mountain Street was isolated. Over the years, as valves were deemed unnecessary, they were paved over, they were hidden, and that evening we chased valves. And when we were unsuccessful, as you stated, of getting it cut off, and what, I hate to say this, but it was actually a benefit that the contractor hit King and Tracy, because it alerted us to, hey, this line's supposed to be dead as well, and it's live, it's feeding. And that got us digging into the archives a little deeper, and we were able to locate a valve on Mountain Street that was under 6 inches of concrete or more, asphalt or more. We were able to cut that asphalt out, get that valve off, and isolate that leak on King and Tracy. So, I mean, it was actually a benefit because it actually solved a little bit of the puzzle for us. We've got a few more valves we're going to be chasing before we do any street work or anything like that. We're going to get a plan together. We're going to be working with Public Works when it comes time for paving, and then we're going to be cutting areas out to try to isolate that line as it should be.
So a couple additional thoughts regarding abandoned lines and mapping, which are great questions, by the way. And just to add to what Mr. Nash was saying about abandoned lines, when lines are abandoned, two things really should happen. A line should be removed, or a line should be filled in place with concrete. And what we're discovering when we're finding these abandoned lines that are still active, neither of those things have occurred. So it's important when we do that we also then go back and work out from the point of failure in concentric circles until we are able to locate some valves. We've been able, as Mr. Nash stated, to dig up some asphalt. We found some valves. We've been able to isolate as a result of that King Street leak. That would help us also hopefully evaluate and isolate that line on Mountain. So we will continue to work on that. Regarding mapping, which is very important. I mean, that is your information that you use to assess, your information that you use to address issues. Our city council invested a couple of years ago in a GIS mapping program here at the city, and we are building that mapping program out to include all of our infrastructure: electric, water, sewer, and natural gas. That takes time. We are using our staff, our same water staff, when they're not out repairing breaks, they're out verifying locations for valves, locations for manholes, and then we're inputting that data to create these layers in GIS that would then inform us in the future, give us a updated, verified network mapping tool that we can use in the field to quickly address the issues that we face. We are doing that with all of our infrastructure and all of our utilities, and it is taking us time. We're getting much closer. We're working on programs that we will take that GIS data and allow us to create outage maps so that we can respond more quickly to the community when there is a water outage due to a main break, or whether there's an electric outage. So we are trying to use technology as a tool to help our teams be more efficient and effective every day as we serve you.
And I'm going to throw one more quick thing in there. regarding the infrastructure that we have, every time we have a main break, we try to save a section of that pipe and have it evaluated so we know the condition of that pipe. We're learning if it's a 10-foot section that needs to be replaced or a mile of pipe. So we save those pieces of pipe. Well, we don't save the pipe, but we save that data that we gain from that pipe to try to evaluate priorities for capital improvement plans on where we need to focus and what's priority.
So, as I mentioned earlier, every question the questions we just responded to are all about distribution, right? We had 4 big areas: treatment, cleaning, sludge management, and distribution. So we recognize the need to have a distribution system that serves us all well.
And I'm obviously over 2 minutes, but I'm not playing gotcha here, I promise. Nothing but respect. What percentage of our water distribution system mapped is recorded with 100% certainty? Like, just if you had to put a number on it. Like, I don't think that question was answered. Do we think 50% is mapped? It sounds like we're using technology, the GIS system, but I mean, how confident are we that?
So as far as the pipe itself, I'd say we are about 80 to 90% mapped.
Okay.
Now, what those maps do not include is a lot of the older infrastructure that is not on the maps because it was done with overlays. And the valves are not included on those maps. So as Matt said, in part of the improvement plan, we're trying to get the valves on. We're trying to make sure all the hydrants are on. We want to have flow data on that hydrant so that way it's quick and accessible.
And thank you for that. And then what percentage of the distribution system is past end of life? If we had to put a number on that, Old Town.
I don't have that answer for you, but that's
Fair.
one thing I can do is I can try to work and gain that answer for you.
Yeah, and like time to play gotcha, this is going to be something we have to deal with for 10, 20 years. Bonus question, and I'll walk away. Is AI monitoring being leveraged or considered to manage the water treatment adjustments that was part of the what's next category? You said there was technology being applied, but are we using new technology?
We are not using AI. SCADA infrastructure is programmed
Real-time adjustments.
Real-time adjustments.
Yeah.
It's not AI.
Okay.
I have, at this point in time, AI is not to the point where I want that adjusting or controlling your water quality. I want us to still very much be involved with the testing and everything when it comes to the quality of the water.
All right, thank you all.
Our next questioner is Everett Still. Everett Still.
We appreciate you guys coming in tonight and going over a lot of this with us. So back in 2024 and 2025, the state issued a notice that City of Kings Mountain was out of compliance with the amount of TTHMs, the trimethyl halide, yes. So part of the thing that you were going to do, the city was going to do at that time, was increase the aeration. They were looking at putting in some carbon, and they were also going to put those baffles back in. Now, my question is, it looks like at that time the reason that you were getting those high levels is because that algae was coming into the system at that time, because that's what causes the interaction with the organics with the chlorine that's being put in there as a disinfectant. That's why they were seeing those big numbers. So the question is, we had that in there, and then you start adding the powdered carbon. Were you adding powdered carbon to it, or are you putting it through a filter? Okay, so the powdered carbon. So it may not be that you can put enough powdered carbon in there to affect those organics coming in, because it takes a whole lot of contact time for that to happen. So I don't know if that's happening, if it's beneficial. Have you tried anything like ferric chloride? Because that's what the city of Lexington uses to knock their organics down. And then the city of Greensboro uses potassium permanganate to take the taste out, because they've had a problem with the organic taste in there for a long time. I don't know if you guys have tried that, if you've had any consultants to mention that might be something that you would try to do.
So we actually do feed potassium permanganate.
Okay.
We do that for lake turnover to focus on the iron and the manganese.
Right.
And as far as the disinfection byproduct, one of the things we were seeing, and you seem very knowledgeable when it comes to the water and the TTHMs and the disinfection byproducts. One of the things we were seeing was our water age. We've mitigated the disinfection byproducts by reducing the water age in the system.
Okay.
Since that time, we have not had a TTHM hit since we have reduced the water age. We actually went from non-compliant to barely detectable.
Well, I know that when a city has a lot of capacity like you guys have right now, that's always a problem because you can't get that flow through there in order to help. And so I saw that you were in under an order to get the sludge out because that was causing a problem also, that you had till April 10th to take care of that, but you are taking care of that right now, so the quality should be going up even more. Go ahead.
As we speak today, the sedimentation that builds up in the basin has all been removed.
Okay. And then my last question is, so you don't feed the potassium permanganate year-round, you only do it when there's a turnover?
Correct. We use a different oxidizer when it comes for the rest of the year.
What do you use at that time?
Currently, it is, sorry, I had my brain shut down on me.
That's okay.
So currently, it is potassium permanganate as
Okay.
our main oxidizer. But when you said working with the state, we're working to look at a peroxide treatment instead of the potassium permanganate for the year round.
All right. I would just say, look, you might want to continue with that potassium permanganate because it does work so well. Especially in like in Greensboro, they've had a problem with that for a long time. They had to put it. They had their supply lake was 20 miles away, and they had a problem with it building up in their line, so that's why they were adding it, and it took care of the taste. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Our next questioner is Bradley Jones. Bradley Jones.
Hey y'all, I'm Brad Jones, Kings Mountain resident. Thank you guys, you've answered a lot of good questions, clarified a lot of stuff. A smaller piece of the puzzle is, I know you mentioned wanting to move to computerized plant monitoring. Kings Mountain, just like a lot of municipalities, there's a shortage of staff for water treatment. Without continuous monitoring, that can impact the quality and taste of water. If I'm remembering correctly, I think at the July 8th meeting, there was some mention of staffing shortages at the water treatment plant. Wanted to see if that could be a piece of the puzzle with this, if we're still experiencing kind of any staffing shortages and what impact that might be having on the current water quality.
I think it definitely had an impact on it because of the way the plant was being operated. We didn't have staff, we didn't have required staff, no, that's not the right word, the necessary staff to keep the plant operating as we are now. We're operating 2 10-hour shifts a day, and again, by operating it, we have slowed down the plant, so to speak. We're not in a rush to fill up the holding tank. So we did not have the staff required. Council was gracious enough to give us 2 positions. So we have a total of 8 positions at the plant right now. We want to get to the point where we can operate 24 hours a day. We need to get there. We've never been full staff. It's tough to recruit because we're recruiting against everybody else that has a water plant, right? We're trying everything we can to, in terms of advertising, salaries, whatnot, to get people in here. We had 6 positions filled. We recently lost 2 people, so we're back down to 4. But I'll say really 5 because he's moved out there. He's spending all of his time out there right now. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I mean, it's an issue not unique to Kings Mountain, like you mentioned, with the infrastructure and the chemicals naturally occurring in the lake. I mean, it's just a myriad of factors working together for that.
Are you certified? You have your certifications for? Because we'll hire you.
I am not. I lived with a guy who did water treatment for forever, so I've heard far more than any sane person should. So that's how I know about
Tell
it.
Tell him to apply.
Thank you, guys.
Our last listed questioner is Jackson Cloninger. Jackson Cloninger.
Maybe, hope not. You definitely didn't save the best for last. I'm probably going to have the least educated questions out of everybody that's been up here. So far we've talked about the source, we've talked about the treatment, we've talked about the distribution, and we've talked about the pipes inside of individual homes. Can we pinpoint that a little bit better? Because I don't think that, just like I said, you guys will have to educate me. I don't think that all these systems failed at once. So I think really what the clarity that a lot of people here would like is what broke the dam, no pun intended, what broke the dam on this issue?
The dam did not just break. You remember the articles from 1984? So the dam has been broken, so to speak. It's all interconnected. It's all related. Everything that's going on in that treatment plant is related, from the fact that to the point where we bring the water in, to what the cleanliness of our basins and that water sitting in those basins, and then being able to be moved and treated and disinfected and going into our holding tanks again, and then going out through the distribution system. It's all interconnected. Nothing specifically broke the dam. It's all about the algae blooms and the organics in the source water. And by fixing all of those pieces, by cleaning basins, by cleaning tanks, by removing sludge, by allowing our filters to work better, the whole system improves. The treatment process, monitoring the treatment process, and being able to adjust on the fly when we see test results that, require the changes.
I will say I did grow up here, and every morning I drank from the tap. I drink water every morning when I wake up. I drank from the tap for years on end, didn't have this problem. So I think maybe some of those articles are a little bit cherry picked. I don't think that I think that most of the citizens would agree we did not have this issue for a very long time. I don't think this has been ongoing since 1984. Not to say that it's never been a problem before, but you talk about the baffles and whatnot being removed from Moss Lake, and then we talk about the deteriorating pipes distribution, and so I think, like most people, I might be leaving here with more questions and answers, and I'm just looking for a little bit of clarity on what exactly is the problem.
Organics in the lake. I'm sorry?
The source? So it's the problem is with the source.
The organics in the lake cause us to have to treat that. It's in every source water lake. I didn't cherry pick those articles. I didn't create those articles. I didn't use AI to create those articles. Those articles were pulled from the Kings Mountain Herald going back to 1984. I didn't write them. I wasn't around.
Yeah.
But
I understand.
the problem was going on at that time.
Yeah. And was that problem solved then, or has the ball just been kicked along all this time? I mean, did we solve the problem from 1984? Was that because, like I say, for like 2 decades, over 2 decades, I've been drinking from the tap in Kings Mountain, and I haven't experienced these problems.
Well, that's good. I'm glad.
Until now. I mean, I will say until now.
Right.
Until about 2 or 3 years ago.
I'm glad. So I'm gonna as long as we bring our water in from Moss Lake, we're going to have to combat the organics that grow in that water. We have a traditional water treatment plant. We treat with chemicals. There's some things we could maybe do in the lake. We're looking into them. Aeration's one. But we're always going to be fighting this battle. And I'm not going to stand up here tonight or sit up here tonight and guarantee that we'll never have this problem again. I think there are going to be times of the year, in the year, that we are experiencing taste and smell issues. What we're trying to do is mitigate that with chemical treatment at the plant as best we can.
Okay, yeah, and like you say, I do understand. Water treatment's ongoing always, but I think what most of the people here at this meeting want to know is, because like I said, we've talked about source, and you just said algae is the problem, but clearly, I won't say clearly because like I said, I'm uneducated on the topic here, but we didn't have a filtration issue, or I mean, so if the algae is the problem, and the problem is that we can't get the algae out, how were we able to do that in the past, but we're not able to do that now?
So over the years, and one of the consultants has just shared this information with us, they actually have satellites that they said they can access. We have actually not seen the data ourselves yet that shows the algae blooms that have increased exponentially over the years. So what you started with in 1984 might have doubled, might have slowed down, but as the years have grown, it's just been exponential growth. 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, etc. And one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to, with the newer equipment that we can do, the process changes, the updated process changes, that's all going to help to mitigate these exponential growth rates on the algae. So that's where we're hoping to control it on our end.
Okay, thank you. And I know my time's almost out, but just for clarity, so the source is an issue and the treatment center is an issue because we have more algae than we have before and we can't remove it all.
The source is always going to be an issue. We're always going to have to combat the organics growing in the water. And we're doing that in our treatment plant by applying the chemicals that I talked about earlier.
Okay, so I believe what you said, and I know you guys are working hard on the topic, but you said you're taking care of the issue, yet we're still seeing problems. And I don't know that we've been given a date in the future to where we could expect to see an end to these problems.
And I'm not going to give you one.
I respect that. I understand that.
If you have a problem, please report it, and we'll come to your house and we will test your water for you.
Okay, I'm just trying to round my question back to the original question of, is it the source, is it the filtration, is it the distribution, or is it the lines in individuals' homes? I don't think it's the lines in individual homes. But I still don't think I've gotten a clear answer to that question.
I think I've answered that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it? Okay, thank you. And like I said, I appreciate you guys a lot, what you're doing.
Hey, Jackson, thank you always. I like Jackson. That kid cares, and we need more youth like that are involved in these situations. I have a couple of questions. Todd, you had talked about the carbon, and what was the other that you're hitting, and you kind of glossed over that. I think that's important. Okay, so you have those. Can you explain that? Because I do think that if that's happening and they're zeroing each other out, and if something's going through there, are we saying that something's going through there, the carbon's not effective and the other thing's not effective, therefore nothing's happening on the other end?
That was a problem. We have to the best of our ability corrected that by spacing out where that treatment occurs. The permanganate is getting applied at the intake, and the carbon is getting applied down the line. What we intend to do is put in a contact chamber between those 2 points that will allow the permanganate to act on the water for up to 60 minutes.
Very good. So my wife's from Kings Mountain. I've been coming to Kings Mountain since 2005. And I'm with Jackson on this. I never tasted it until the fall of 22. And then it went away. And then in the spring of 23, it came back big. That's the spring of 23. You talked about the baffles. Then I became mayor. And I actually, because I came in and it was happening as I was just taking over as mayor, I asked the city manager then about the baffles. I said, why would we take them out? Now, he told me, and I don't know true or not, but he told me that DEQ actually had consulted with our staff and told them to remove that. Is that true?
I don't know. That was in 2015. I wasn't here. These people weren't here. I don't know went on back then.
You can look that up and find it. The only reason I ask is because
Had to have been approved by DEQ. I'll put it that way. Any
exactly.
changes to the
And you
plant
did
would have
say
had to
that.
have
So,
been approved.
all right, very good. I appreciate that. At the beginning, I didn't say something to this audience. I didn't say come up here and be kind. And I will tell you this: I'm outrageously impressed and proud of you. Not that I would think that anything else would happen, but you are at heart kind and considerate and very impressive. So, very, very nice job, Nancy. You're not going to send any emails. You're going to talk to me afterwards, or we're going to take care of business tonight. Are you good with that? All right, very good. Excellent. Thank you. Will, you've been here for 6 months. If you would have known what you were walking into, be honest, would you have taken this job?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why is that? That's awesome.
So as I mentioned, I've been in water quality for almost 20 years. For whatever oddball reason, I have a passion for water quality.
Yes.
Most people like to mountain bike or play. I want to get water straight for some odd reason. So yes, I absolutely would have taken a position because I feel like it's important and it's something that's necessary. And as you've mentioned in council many times, it's been a large conversation that it is a life source. It's a key part. You've got heat, food, shelter, and water's part of it, and that's my job is to get that straight.
When you first came, you had done a presentation for council. We, two of us went in a room with the two gentlemen that you're with today, and I was so impressed with that I wanted to do this. If you remember, I said that day we need to do this for the residents. So thank you for taking that time and doing that today. Appreciate you guys tremendously. I really do. Will, you're doing a phenomenal job. I know what you walked into, but your attitude's pretty impressive. So thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Excellent. Then 2 more questions, but let me just recognize council who is here. Councilwoman Heather Lemond is here, right here. Councilman Scott Neisler is right back there. Councilwoman Shara Miller is right there, and next to her is Mayor Pro Tem Annie Toms, and is Councilman Jimmy West is here, and is that everybody that's here today? Very good. All right, thank you, and thank you guys for your time.
I believe we had 2 audience questions that had already identified. Do you still have a question, sir? You're good? Okay. And then, yes, sir. You can come up to the podium or if you want.
Hi, thank you for your time too. If it's okay, I'll ask, I've got 4 questions, I'll ask them all and then you can just answer what you can. That's all right. First question is, there was a rumor that you were gonna drop hydrogen peroxide around the lake to take care of the algae blooms. I just wonder if that was true, when you were gonna do it, and why, if that is true, why you're going to take or use the hydrogen peroxide when that's not particularly good for fish. The other questions are, prior to David Caldwell's presentation and questions, were y'all aware of the significant nutrient contamination that Buffalo Creek brings into Moss Lake? And secondly, do you have any future plans to address the impact that Buffalo Creek brings into the contamination that it brings into Moss Lake? And the last question is, have you had any discussions with Department of Environmental Quality or even preliminary discussions with DEQ about dealing with Buffalo Creek contamination and how it affects Moss Lake? That's all I have. Thank you.
The DEQ is very much aware of what is going on upstream in Buffalo Creek. I don't know that. Can you speak to the bacteria coming in? I mean, we're testing the water at the intake, correct? Every day, and so whatever is coming in is being treated bacteria-wise with the chemicals that we're applying. As far as the hydrogen peroxide, again, we have consultants involved to help us make sure that what we think we are doing right. No. I'm addressing your question. We have consultants in place to address what we're doing now and in the future to make things better. One of the things that has been talked about is treating the actual lake water with hydrogen peroxide to kill the algae. The algae gets worse and worse every year. So the consultants that we're using have discussed this with us one time, and the first words out of my mouth were, of course, all concerned, or the first questions I had were all concerned about safety, people, fish, everything. So as of right now, all we have had is a conversation.
And just to clarify on the hydrogen peroxide, it is a peroxide. It is not hydrogen peroxide that they mentioned to us. There's many levels of peroxide, many different types of chemicals. The consultants we're working with have a full environmental division, and they've actually applied this in multiple lakes all across the U.S. So that was one of the things they pitched to us, just to put it on the table so we could kind of have something rolling in the back of our head. It's just another idea.
Let wait. I think we have time for one more question. I don't have anyone on the list, but if anyone has a question, they can come up to the podium. Yep.
Mr. Steele had mentioned TTHMs. Are those hazardous?
So disinfection byproducts, TTHMs and HAA5s is what it is. It is a rolling quarterly sample. So long story short, no, they're not hazardous. It's something we test for. You can go online, look at it, or I can get you the exact statement. But you would have to consume such a large amount that it's physically impossible for it to be dangerous. It's a product that we test for. What it is, it actually is a determination level of how the organics is reacting with the disinfectant in the system. And DEQ does set a limit on that because obviously you don't want anything in the system that you don't have to. So that's the reason with that rolling quarterly average, we saw a spike. And since that one time, it's been non-existent since that point.
Do we have any lead pipes in the system?
So there may be some customers with some lead service lines, but that would be, we're trying to do the grant study, lead and copper grant, thank you. We're trying to do the lead and copper grant, which will identify those issues. Yep, that's from the meter.
So there's none in the water, in the city's water system. Like
the lead and copper survey,
owned.
the lead and copper survey should will address that.
Yeah, but there's no city-owned lead or copper.
As long as the city's been around, I can't sit here and tell you that there's absolutely none.
Okay, so there could be.
The city's old, sir. I got no clue. I don't know.
You don't know exactly what the pipes are like.
Oh, I know what most of the pipes are because the Clean Water Drinking Act from 1973 forward defined that. But in older homes beyond and before that Clean Water Drinking Act, I can't sit there and tell you about those homes.
Okay. All right. You mentioned that federal funds were not used or not available to replace those lines. What were those ARPA grants for?
What were the ARPA grants for?
Yeah, could we have used those to replace, to upgrade our system?
Yeah, I can tell you that. We had $39 million from ARPA funds and state funds that have funded the wastewater treatment plant upgrade and the Project South going out exit 5 from the wastewater treatment plant. We had ARPA dollars, $2.5 million to deal with a Potts Creek, replacing terracotta pipe there. We had other ARPA funds, 400,000. We had $1.6 million in economic development funds that we used for a water project. We've got the lead and copper grant that we're going to use to replace any lead and copper that we found. And then in 2018, we had a $6.5 million grant that was used for a water and sewer project, and I'm not sure what that one was.
Could we have used those ARPA grants for upgrades?
I don't know if we could have or not. Probably they were specifically given for, the projects that we asked for at the time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Give it a second. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. If you're not familiar with QR codes, you can open up your smartphone and go to your camera setting, and you can scan that, and it will open up right to that page. But like I said, it's also on the homepage of the website. I'll get out of the way so you can get it. There is a banner right at the top of the homepage of the website. There is the form on the bottom of that page. Please submit any questions that you have, and we're going to update the FAQs on there and continue to communicate. So thank you all for coming. Have a great night.